Hello, folks. Welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. Once again, Elon Musk proves himself to be a free speech hero. He released various internal emails showing beyond a shadow of a doubt that Twitter was engaged with conservative censorship during the 2020 presidential campaign and, of course, the suppression of the Hunter Biden laptop story. As Elon said over the weekend, Twitter was acting like an arm of the Democratic National Committee in the lead-in to the 2020 presidential election. And undoubtedly, there are more emails coming, which will shed even more light on Twitter's despicable behavior in suppressing free speech. Most of it, undoubtedly, conservative suppression. But who knows? Anyway, you had a bunch of left-wingers inside Twitter making decisions that fair-minded people should not be making. I'm especially interested in the role of one James Baker, who was a former FBI Director James Comey henchman back in the days when Comey and his gang were trying to impeach Donald Trump for non-existent Russian collusion charges. Baker lost his job as the top FBI lawyer because of all that, and then a couple years ago, later winds up as Twitter's deputy general counsel. Now, how's that for even-handed stupidity and bias? And then this guy Baker was working with top Twitter lawyer Viaja Gandhi, who has said publicly she doesn't even believe in free speech and was a known lefty. Fortunately, Elon Musk has cleaned out these soiled stables, but they caused a lot of damage in their day, which was only a couple of years ago. And another side of this sordid story is the role of the so-called intelligence chiefs, the intel boys. Remember Leon Panetta and James Clapper and John Brennan, who all have argued, along with nearly 50 others from the deep state, that the Hunter Biden laptop was classic Russian disinformation. Sure it was, fellas. I'll give you that one if you give me that you're arguing classic left-wing disinformation. Haven't heard much from this crowd lately, but it does raise ongoing worries about the institutional influence of the FBI and the CIA and the DNI on current decisions by social media outlets, including, by the way, Facebook. Zuckerberg and Facebook have not received enough scrutiny. Yet, over their conservative censorship, Zuckerbuck's sort of acknowledged podcast host Joe Rogan that Facebook might have been guilty of some conservative censorship, but that story requires much, much more investigation. By the way, we're not just talking about fake Russian hacking or so-called disinformation. We're also talking about other things in American political life, like, for example, suppressing tweets on COVID, or parents' role in their kids' schools. Remember those domestic terrorists? I do. And what about the White House? Or the executive agencies in the federal government? Karine Jean-Pierre acknowledging the White House is still hunting for examples of so-called misinformation. That, presumably, they are still in touch with social media outlets on those subjects. You might even include the failed attempt of the Department of Homeland Security to set up their own Office of Misinformation, which in and of itself was a badly misinformed idea. But who knows how much of that is still going on around the federal government in the Biden administration? Who knows? Let me add one more social media operation called TikTok, which is a guaranteed uncensored intel line going right to the Chinese Communist Party in Beijing. It should have been tossed out of the country years ago, but they're still operating. And who knows what mischief they're attempting here inside America. And finally, like everyone, I want to get to the bottom of this entire Hunter Biden laptop information. Of course, we know it exists, but we don't know what all is in there. Now, hopefully, both Senate and House investigators can find out about this, though I think I have more confidence in the House Republicans than the Senate Democrats, but we'll see. Anyway, for my part, I still want to know the degree of influence peddling that occurred through these various Hunter Biden connections. Most of all, I want to know how much money and for how long this money has been flowing to President Joe Biden. We all remember Tony Bobulinski and the big guy who gets 10%. Well, I want to know how much that 10% was. I'd like to know if that 10% continues to this day. You know, follow the money is always the mark of good investigative journalism. So show me the money to the Oval Office. How much? How long? Has it stopped? What bills might it be paying? That's right, folks. Show me that money. Joe Biden keeps telling us he had no inkling of his son's business dealings. But we know that's a complete falsehood. But we don't know what those business dealings were worth to the man in the Oval Office. And to me, that is still the most important aspect of the Hunter Biden laptop investigation. Elon Musk's free speech movement is an incredible gift to our public life. But the free movement of foreign money to Joe Biden may be equally interesting. And that is my riff tonight.